Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Traina. Thank you for listening. We have a great show this week. Kevin Clark from The Ringer joined me to talk about a variety of NFL topics. We get into everything from the Colts hiring Jeff Saturday to Thursday Night Football on Amazon to Aaron Rodgers to Kevin making a plea for people to be more into hot chocolate. It was a great conversation with Kevin from The Ringer. After that, Sal Licata joins me for our weekly Train of Thought segment where we get into the recent anarchy on Twitter, give out our NFL best bets, and read some Apple reviews. Speaking of reviews, leave a review on Apple. We'll read it right here on the SI Media Podcast. You should also subscribe to the SI Media Podcast if you're not a subscriber, and check out recent interviews. Jim Nance was on the podcast last week. John Oran from Sports Business Journal 2 weeks ago. Chris Mad Dog Russo 3 weeks ago. Dan Lebitard 4 weeks ago. So if you didn't hear any of those interviews, go into the archives, check them out, subscribe to the SI Media Podcast, rate and review. All right, let's get to this week's show. Kevin Clark from The Ringer, followed by Sal Licata and Train of Thoughts, all right here on the SI Media Podcast. All right, joining me now. Thought you were on recently, in the past year, but I noticed was not on since 2021, which is a big mistake. So we're fixing that now. From The Ringer and the always entertaining Slow News Day show, Kevin Clark. Kevin, how are you?
What's going on, buddy?
Not too much.
Too long. It's been too long. We can't go a year without doing this. But that's the thing. It all sneaks up on you. Like, that's what happened to my show, too, where I think, I just had somebody 6 months ago. Oh, wait, it's been a year. Let's reach out.
Yeah.
I have Ariel Hawani's coming on next week. Same thing. Like, I can't imagine that it was last November, but here we are.
And I don't mind repeating guests. I actually like repeating guests with people who come on and say stuff and who are good. But when I don't know why in my head I thought I had you on this year. And when I saw you did it, I was like, well, this is a perfect time here with football. A lot of wacky football stuff. The Jeff Saturday thing, obviously. Let's start with that, because
sure,
I feel like a complete dope because I have a take that I guess is in the really small minority on this. And it's okay. So take away the Rooney Rule stuff, because I get why there's an issue there where they didn't try to interview anyone and they just went with put that aside, which I know is hard to do. But I looked at it like this makes total sense because, number one, if you are a guy who's trying to get a head coaching job in the NFL, you don't want to be the interim for the Colts to go get your ass kicked for the final, whatever it is, 2 months. If they're going to play that quarterback, they're losing most of their games. So why would you want to start your career or have on your resume, 2-5 or whatever? I don't know the numbers. They're going to win 1 or 2 games the rest of the season, despite Jim Irsay saying they're not tanking, which is, I get that's what he has to say. So I was like, I didn't have any problem with this move at all from that standpoint. I thought, okay, guy played there. He obviously has a relationship with Irsay. I don't think the no coaching experience is like, look at Urban Meyer. He had experience. You can't find a bigger shit show in NFL history.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then I saw the outrage. Now, if the outrage is about the Rooney Rule, I get it. But you don't want Eric Bieniemy getting this job right now. This is a dead end place for the time being. In the offseason, yes, give him that job. But for now, go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Number one, they're tanking. We can leave it there if we wanted to, but let's not.
Right.
I agree with you in the sense that this is a set up to fail job. And Ian Rappaport was on Slow News Day this week, and I mentioned it happened he was on right after this all came down. And I said, what's happening here? And we kind of piggybacked off of some of his NFL Network reporting. And he thinks that Jeff Saturday is such a confidant of Irsay that it's almost like he's his eyes and ears. And if you treat Jeff Saturday more like we actually joked about, like the Bobs from Office Space, where they come in and it's like, hey, quarterbacks coach, what do you do here? Hey, offensive line coach, are you any good? Almost like an outside consultant coming in to coach the team, it makes more sense. Now, I'm of two minds here. My initial reaction was everything has failed this year. Let's get weird. Let's see what happens if somebody who's never done anything gets an NFL coaching job for half a season. My entire philosophy and outlook would change if he got the permanent job. That would
Right.
be embarrassing. That would be scandalous. That would be ridiculous. That would fly in the face of anything the NFL has said they care about as far as the pipeline of coaches and how, and just, I mean, it would be a horrible. I'm not a big optics guy. It'd be a horrible look for everybody.
Right, because when I heard he got the job, in my head, I'm thinking he got the job to finish the season, then he's out.
Yeah. So I'm that's my thought too. And so if this is, I mean, to be quite honest with you, and this is me spitballing here. I've talked to like 3 people about this in the league, none of whom, by the way, know what's going on because I don't think Jim Irsay knows what's going on. But if I were just spitballing here, the person who has the most at stake here, as far as Jeff Saturday's long-term employment, might be the GM Chris Ballard. Because if the report today was that Irsay called Jeff Saturday on Sunday in the middle of the game and said, what the hell is going on with our team? Why is our protection so bad? And that started the conversation that led to him being a head coach. But I'm thinking, if he wants to call up somebody and just complain and figure out what's going on, it sounds more like a GM than a head coach. But they didn't fire the GM. They fired the coach on that day. And so Jeff Saturday slides in, and maybe he just sees what's going on there. But I think that maybe, again, just spitballing, maybe the Occam's razor here is that he sees what's going on. They hire a legitimate coach after the season, and they have Jeff Saturday in a full-time role in the front office as a consultant, whatever you want to call it, assistant to the owner, some phony title where he makes good money. I mean, there's so many guys in the league right now. Chris Spielman is a great example in Detroit. He's just around in Detroit. He's not the GM. He's not the coach. He's just Chris Spielman. And I think that is, first of all, you don't have to take the heat on anything. You just kind of get to hang around and go to practice and drink coffee and just sort of see what you see. That to me would probably be a better long-term role for Jeff Saturday. I don't care what the Colts do in the second half of this season. I don't care. They already benched Matt Ryan. They're already starting a quarterback who's not going to be a long-term starter in this league. This is just an owner doing weird stuff because he always does weird stuff. I was talking to people around the league. Do you know how weird Jim Irsay is? Just like the music stuff and his philosophy on things, has been well documented. He's out there. So I don't think we should read in big picture trends around the league on what Jim Irsay does.
Right.
But I would be shocked if the league let the Colts hire Jeff Saturday as head coach next year. Even if Jim Irsay wants to do that, that's a call from Goodell, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, unless he runs the table, basically, he's not going to be back. To me, he's there as a babysitter. That's how I looked at it. Yeah. I do think there is, I do think there's also a little bias here against sort of that he's an offensive lineman, because if this was and name recognition, if Jim Irsay brought in Peyton, people would think this is the greatest thing that ever happened. Right. But Jeff Saturday's. Yeah, he's not, no one cares about offensive linemen. No, offensive linemen don't have quote unquote name recognition. I mean, listen, we know he was a great offensive lineman. If you're a football fan, you know the name. I'm talking about Q rating, in terms of Q rating. If this was Peyton, the reaction would be totally different.
Do you know this is a huge win for?
Who's that?
Talk radio callers, message board posters, and just guys at the bar who do this thing whenever there's an opening, any team.
Yeah.
And they say, and the University of Florida has an opening, and they say, you know what? He's never coached, but I'd love to see Tim Tebow in that role. He's going to invigorate the team. Think about, you know the Yankees well. When there's any opening, it's just let's plug in a mid-90s. Let's get Bernie Williams in there to fix this. That. Jeff Saturday being hired with no experience at the NFL level now opens up all sorts of possibilities for completely insane sports radio talk callers and completely insane message board posters of just being like, oh man, the Dolphins have an opening. I feel like Dan Marino could be a head coach here. That to me is the most exciting thing. Opens up completely new possibilities of insanity. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I want to shift gears to another topic here to get your take on this. I feel like the NFL they're very slow to move on changing certain things, if at all. And I feel like one thing that needs to be changed for the better, and I'm hoping there can be some sort of push for this, is moving the trade deadline back. Because this was actually, this might have been the first time ever where we had like a MLB/NBA-esque NFL trade deadline. I mean, there was some great action there with Calvin Ridley and
Yeah.
McCaffrey had gone a couple of days. But it comes too soon. I mean, you still have teams on bye weeks.
Yeah.
I think with the injuries being what they are now. I mean, look at this case here. Now, it sounds like, we're taping this Wednesday night. It sounds like the Bills dodged a bullet with Josh Allen with the elbow.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say they didn't dodge that bullet and he had to have elbow surgery and he's out for the year. That's your marquee, one of the top 2-3 marquee teams in the league. A lot of people, they can then go, let's say 3 weeks from now this is never going to happen. This is all pipe dream stuff. But let's say 3 weeks from now, the Bucks and the Packers are still struggling. The Bucks especially, because let's say the Bucks lose the next 3. He's going to retire after this year. Why not ship him off to Buffalo, Tom Brady? And it's too soon, the trade deadline. And if they're going to have, now it used to be where nobody ever got traded. So who cares when the trade deadline was? But this year gave me some hope that okay, this is really good. It's really exciting. It's really fun for the sport. It needs to be later in the season. What do you think?
Great point. There was some reporting yesterday. Maybe it was Andrew Brandt. Somebody who's been in the league actually talked about this, where he said that there's always been a media drumbeat to have it later, and that teams have been reluctant to ever go to a baseball model where you have literal rentals. Okay, let's say it's on December 1st, and then the Packers are going to make the playoffs, and then they just rent a pass rusher for 1 month, and they kind of go that way. Having said that, we've seen enough of that. I mean, Von Miller was an incredible rental last year.
Right.
Guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, who are stars, have been traded mid-year when a team like the Dolphins realizes that their entire season is cooked, and there's guys who don't want to be there. So I don't know where this goes. I think if the NFL sees an opportunity, one thing that they've gotten good at is building up the drama around things that have historically been kept under wraps. And a great example of that is free agency. I remember doing a story a couple of years ago where free agency was so confusing because it officially launched at midnight. Then there was the legal tampering period and all this stuff. And the NFL essentially changed it to, I don't know what the time is, 3 p.m., whatever the legal tampering window was, so that the 5 and 6 p.m. total access and sports centers could have the news live. And then Schefter and Rapsheet and Garofalo and Pelissero could just start going and getting all of these signings. They want that stuff to be available for basically the sports version of the evening news. And they've tried other things. They tried a veterans combine a couple of years ago that they thought might gain some traction, where it's like, Brady Quinn's trying out for an NFL team. Let's take a look at this. And so they've always tried to market the inactivity as much as the activity, right? But I think they still see the NBA has gotten really good at that, but people aren't watching their games as much as they used to. Baseball, from what I understand from my friends in baseball media, the trade deadline is by far the most trafficked, most tweeted day of the year, but then nobody wants to watch Reds Cardinals on August 5th. And so I don't think it's urgent for the NFL to fix that, because the games still sell for $80 million per game, whatever it is. And 10 million people will watch a Commanders game if it's on Amazon. But I do think at some point they're going to say, hey, we can sell this. We can get some attention for it. We can, make it a day on NFL Network. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is the NFL likes to think globally on this stuff, and they say, okay, let's not hype up the trade deadline for the sake of hyping it up. Let's make it a day on the NFL Network, or let's find the week where attention is at its lowest. And there are weeks, I'm just looking at some of our numbers over the past 5 years or something, and there gets to be around before Thanksgiving, a little bit of a lull where people kind of maybe take 2 weeks off from obsessing over the NFL from a consumption standpoint. And maybe you move it back 2 weeks because of that. I don't know necessarily what it all looks like, but I do agree they could really spruce it up a bit.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it used to be where there would never be any trades. And now, if you're going to have a flurry, let's really embrace it and go all out with it. So since you mentioned Amazon there, I did want to ask you, what has been your experience with Thursday Night Football, Amazon? Does the streaming bother you? Do you not mind it? Do you enjoy the broadcast? That was one of the big media stories going into the year, was the exclusivity on Thursday nights. The games have been awful. What's been your experience and review?
Don't mind it, quite like it. I like the fact, Andrew Marchand made the point a couple of weeks ago that what Amazon has done in not reinventing the wheel, but doing things differently. I want to stress that and get back to it. Has made what Apple did look so ridiculous, where they went out and they tried to basically reinvent broadcasts for baseball on Friday night. And I'm not a huge baseball guy, but it sounds like that was pretty universally rejected from the people who watch games every Friday night. What Amazon did is the best of both worlds. You get Al Michaels, somebody everybody's comfortable with. Krista Thompson is somebody who's obviously been on broadcast for a long time. Kirk Herbstreit, everybody at least knows. I mean, I come from a college football family, and the reverence, including from myself, of Kirk Herbstreit is unbelievable. I'm not sure necessarily football people, NFL people necessarily get it now, but like if I was on fire in my living room at home in Orlando and Kirk Herbstreit was on TV talking about the Gators' next 4 games, my parents would be like, Kevin, can you stop? Like Kirk's breaking down what he thinks about Napier, right? Like or Mike Norvell or any of these guys, right? And so he can build that really quickly, I think, on the NFL level. And then Richard Sherman has been great. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been great. Andrew Whitworth, who's been on Slow News Day in the past month, has been wonderful. I think that it's doing a really good job of incorporating new voices into a format that everybody's pretty familiar with. So I have no complaints at all. And I think that it was always, you always hear these stories. Anything on an NFL broadcast has to basically be run by, as far as personnel and as far as changes go, has to be looped in with the NFL league office. So they're not going to let you hire some stand-up comedian, put him on the pregame show unless like it's. I know you're about to say Dennis Miller. But
No. I'll let you finish, then I'll.
Oh no, I'm just saying there's a limit to the weirdness. Because, Brian Curtis and I joke about this all the time. He's coming on Friday. We'll probably joke about it on Slow News Day. But it's like sometimes networks will try something with other sports. Right. And I'll text Curtis and be like, Goodell would have just shut this broadcast off 5 minutes into this if this were happening. I actually forget what examples it is. But sometimes you'll see stuff and you're just like, man, the NFL would never do this level of experimentation. Usually that means it's bad. Or they tried it and they bricked it. The NFL you're only going to be able to really innovate by like 10% a year. And so I think within those parameters, Amazon has done awesome.
Well, I have a lot to say here. I mean, one, you will never make it if you ever want to go into the media critic world if you have nothing negative to say. That's just that's just not how it works.
I have some great news. Brian Curtis is a wonderful media critic for TheRinger.com. That job is not open, and if elected, I will not serve.
You can never ever say I have nothing negative to say. I mean, that's just But it's funny how you bring up the comedian stuff because I feel like their pregame show has gotten attention twice this season. Once was when, it wasn't the pregame, but it was halftime when they basically took a pass on the Tua stuff when he had the concussion. And then the other time was when they ran a clip from a show that's on Amazon Prime. I forgot the name of the show, but the comedian Taram. That clip, again, we're in that world where we're judging it based on Twitter reaction, but that was one of the most vicious things I've seen on Twitter recently, where the reaction to that was not good. To say the least.
I don't. Here's the deal on that one. Okay, I don't know him. I don't know what that show is. I haven't checked it out. That's the kind of thing where, like, if you kind of got a dud there, don't put it on at halftime of a well-watched game in front of 10 million people. I know maybe there was a deal in there, but like, just let that.
You know how that works. It's an Amazon Prime show. They're trying to do some cross promotion.
I didn't,
and it didn't help. The promotion did not help.
It certainly did not help. I don't know anything about that show. I just saw the same clip you did. I agree. I did not. Wasn't a lot of laughs coming from my end on that one.
Yeah, I felt bad because I was like, the way it got panned was pretty vicious. Listen, I have no complaints with the telecast. I think you really summed up Herbstreit well. There's a gravitas there that you're getting a real analysis of what's going on. Al is Al. I wish the pregame show it wouldn't be a cookie cutter pregame show, but and I've said this for years. I mean, you take And I like all the people on this. This isn't anything about the people on all those shows are great. But if you take the Fox pregame show, the CBS pregame show, the NFL Network pregame show, the ESPN pregame show, the Amazon, they're all the same. It's amazing. Now you hit on a good point here, because in my head, I'm thinking, how does nobody want to be different? How does nobody want to stand out? I mean, every show has 50 people. They do the same stories. And, I do wonder if a lot of that is the NFL. Like, the NFL is not going to let, like you said, there be a pregame show on a national network before a slate of games with people trying to do stand-up and acting like clowns and not taking things seriously. But it is amazing to me that they're just all the same.
I think that the NFL has two, I wouldn't call them roadblocks, but there's a reason that a lot of the product looks the same. Number one is what you described. The NFL would at least be like, what are you guys doing, for some of the crazier experimentation if they tried. The other part is, like, there's not a lot the casual fan is interested in a way. Like, we don't like, you and I would really be interested in a breakdown of how Chase Young has developed over the past 3 years if it's a Commanders game, right? But the reason 50 million people watch a playoff game is not because of you and I. It's because of my mom and my dad, who, and I used to write feature stories in the Wall Street Journal, and before every playoffs, I'd call my mom and I'd say, Mom, like, who have you heard of? Right? Like, who, like, she watches these games. Yeah. And we'd go through it, Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, whatever. And I remember it was just like 2015, and I was like, hey, you've heard of Richard Sherman? And she was like, oh yeah, Aaron Andrews guy. Like, and it's just, I think we all overrate how much anybody knows, whatever. And so it really is like coach, quarterback, star player, And I remember talking to somebody who was very big in this industry, is very big in this industry. We were just having beers a couple of years ago. And he was like, the dirty little secret is you really only have to know like half the quarterbacks in this league, like their tendencies. You don't have to watch tape on number 22 in the league, okay? You don't have to watch Taylor Heineke tape unless you're actually calling a Commanders game. I can't believe how many Commanders references I made in the last 20 minutes, but I promise that'll be my last one. And also, like, even the insiders, like, they really only have to check in on 5 guys per team if they care about only buzz, only the top level stories. And so there's a limit on how deep you can get on those sort of shows. Like, even me, like, I love writing the stuff I write and the analysis and the features and all that stuff, but I'm probably not going to go to Arizona to write a story about anybody other than Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, JJ Watt, DeAndre Hopkins. Nobody else. And, like, there are players that I respect deeply on that team and every team. But I'm not going to – nobody's going to click on a story like that.
Right.
No one's going to click on 9,000 unless it tells you something bigger about the sport. Right. And I think that pregame shows and postgame shows and halftime operate on that on an extreme higher level, where if they talk about someone – I remember years ago at the Wall Street Journal, maybe 2013, 2014, maybe even later, they did a study of readers to find out, like, who resonated with them. And a shockingly small percentage knew who Russell Westbrook was. This is like, you in our world, Russell Westbrook has 100% name penetration.
Right.
Not in the median TV viewer, median Wall Street Journal reader. Like, it was just a different deal. And so I think that there has to be one of the reasons that there's a sameness to a lot of this stuff is there's only so many ways they can go and still appeal to the 40, 50 million people who watch the biggest games. Right. That's just my take on it.
No, I think you're right. And I think, you have so many ex-players and ex-coaches on there that they're not going to really rip current players. It's going to be very generic.
Well, that's a different situation. That's even stranger. I mean, that's a lot of coaches who want to get back in. Right.
I guess my dream, and, like, I get it. Like, if you have a pregame show, you have to do sort of the injuries, the weather, the fantasy, blah, blah, blah. But, like, give me a show with 2 people, not 78, and make them not players. Like, I always think of, like, Peter Schrager, Kyle Brand from Good. Like, give me those 2 and give them a half hour. It doesn't have to, like, now the pregame shows are all 3-4 hours, which is absurd. Give them 30 minutes and do with their thing. Like, just give me that option of something different, because they're not, the hosts today, they're not going to go to town on, anything that controversial.
The players thing is fascinating to me because I'm going to switch sports here, but it applies to what we're talking about. So I was just BSing with a guy who worked for NASCAR a couple of months ago. I'm not a huge NASCAR guy, but I host a Formula One podcast that has gotten a good amount of traction, and we were just talking about industry trends. And I said to him, "Well, why did NASCAR do a Drive to Survive? Because so much of that was Netflix." And he said, "Listen, like the NASCAR world is so small. Everybody knows everybody. And one bad word about somebody means you can't go to this restaurant anymore. You can't go to this hotel lobby anymore without hiding your face. You can't go to your kid's daycare anymore because you said this about this team. And so nobody wants to say anything crazy, right? And it's like they all live in Charlotte or Atlanta or a couple of different cities. And you think about the network of ex-players, and it's pretty similar. You know, there's 5-6 cities these guys all live in. They all still hang out together. They're all still out of practice, and they love the connection between the older players and the younger players, and especially in a lot of these teams where it's so vibrant. Like you know, when an ex-Steeler comes back to Pittsburgh, it's you know, it's like the former governor is coming back. You know, and so I just think that there's a lot of incentive for a former player to just kind of couch any sort of criticism. And when you do find, like, you know, I thought the sort of prince who was promised a couple of years ago was Jay Cutler. When you heard people say it in media when they heard his auditions, I mean, obviously went back to go play for Adam Gase, but like, you almost need a guy who gets into the booth and will just say anything and will do the homework and will just say, this guy is just not very good at this. And then one, you know, it doesn't get talked about enough, but one guy who's really good at that is Chris Collinsworth, who will just say, this guy's trying to cover this guy. He just can't do it. And there's actually very little of that at top end football analysis.
See, I think I think Troy is better than Chris. I think Troy is the best at calling out players, and he does it in a fair way. Mm-hmm. And I think he has to do that. And Chris, if they're doing those games that have that many viewers, standalone games. The pregame show is different. I think pregame shows want to keep things light. They don't want to go out there and hammer. It's a different vibe. I'll tell you one thing. Speaking of former players on pregame shows, the one guy who will get me to like leave the TV on and watch his segment is Gronk, because
really
did you see what he said last week about Zach Wilson? It made no sense whatsoever. And it was phenomenal.
Think so.
So he's on the Fox pregame show now.
Yeah, of course.
And they usually like beam him in on satellite from New York because they're in LA, those guys. And they just throw like some topics at him, and he makes these really bad stand-up jokes in response. Okay. And well, he had a good, like, they asked him about coming back to play tight end for the Bucks. No. They asked him about, it was the week with when they had the atrocious roughing the passer calls, and that was the big topic for the week. And he said something about, I forgot his line, but he either said something about like geriatric Tom Brady or like Tom Brady who's ready for the nursing home. Gronk's like the only person who can get away with that with Tom Brady. And it was fun. But this week he had a complete train wreck where they asked him something about Zach Wilson. And he tried to make reference to Zach Wilson having sex with the mother's friend, but he said something like, well, this is what he said. He said, as long as they can keep Zach Wilson away from parent-teacher conference night.
Oh, no.
Just makes no sense. It made no sense. Like, you knew what he was referencing. You knew he was trying so hard to get that joke in about Zach Wilson sleeping with the mother's friend, if that was true. But he mentioned parent-teacher conference night. It made no sense. It was great.
I love that, and I actually think there's room. I mean, sounds like you agree with me. There's room in this industry for less polish.
Yes,
and I think that so many of these shows, 5 guys in suits sitting, you know, one hand over the other, saying, you know what? If the Ravens got to get back to their identity, they got to start running the ball, and everything will be fine. Or, you know, whatever. Or they're giving some take that's 3 weeks late that was already been written about by the local columnist. Right. The fans already know, right? I mean, like, the biggest thing for me, my favorite football team in the world is the Miami Hurricanes. And you can tell within 5 seconds whether the pre, post, and the people calling the game have done their own homework. You know, you can tell that a mile away. And usually they have, depending on kind of the crew. But I just feel like there's a part in this industry, and I actually think in a weird way, like Gronk, you're describing someone who's great, but even like Stephen A, he'll go into segments with not a lot of content, and he will grind it out until you're laughing. And he will just say, like, I was actually talking to someone about this the other day, where I was listening to him over the summer, and he went into this Aaron Rodgers take, and he didn't really have anything. And so we just started screaming the name Aaron Rodgers over and over again until finally I was like, this is amazing. He's doing great. And, like, sometimes I remember a couple of years ago, I was sitting there, my wife was sitting there, and we were watching NBA pregame, and Stephen A just started screaming about something. And my wife was just like, what is this? This is amazing. And you forget sometimes because, again, we're so used to Stephen A that it's like, he's so different from everybody else on television. And that's why I think, I feel like we've learned some of the wrong lessons from some of those guys' success. Is that you can be different on television and it can work. It just has to be entertaining to people who make the audience grow from 3 million to 9 million.
You just used Aaron Rodgers sort of as a part of your story there. And since we're talking about media and you mentioned Rodgers, can we also, like, if you're on a pregame show, if you're on an NFL telecast, if you're on any studio show, how about we now put a full pause on ayahuasca jokes? It's run its course. It's run its course. Every time he plays badly, we've got someone out there, oh, maybe he needs to do. Can we retire the ayahuasca jokes? Can we do? Election day was this week. Can we vote on that on a ballot? And
I think it's funny. I think with Rodgers in particular, I know Aaron a little tiny bit. We spent a decent amount of time. I've spent a decent amount of time interviewing him over the past 2 years, and I think part of it, frankly, is wanting to needle him without wanting to make a claim on his play. Because I think everybody's scared to write him off because we've done it a couple of times. It happened with Tom Brady, too. And we got to the point where now no one ever says anything about Tom Brady because we doubted him so much that, you don't want to end up like Max Kellerman 5 years ago, or, one of the guys, PFF, Sam Monson, wrote a piece basically saying in 2014 that Brady was done. And, check his mentions sometimes. See how that's going every time.
Does freezing cold takes whip that out every now and then?
I think that's the greatest hits for freezing cold takes. But but no, I mean it's really, I think with Rodgers, I think they're trying to needle him, but they don't want to say he's missing throws downfield, which he is. That he's frankly the problem right now. His play, because if he was playing at a normal MVP level, there'd be none of those problems. Dan Orlovsky, God bless him, seems to be the only person who will say that this isn't Matt LaFleur's offense, this is Aaron Rodgers' offense, and he's doing a really bad job at running it. And there's no identity right now, and Orlovsky's all over this. But I almost think that, like, the Joe Rogan jokes, the ayahuasca jokes, the podcast jokes, like, it's to obscure the fact that nobody wants to have a real debate about Aaron Rodgers because he's playing really badly, and everybody seems afraid to say it.
Well, I do think people in the media are a little bit afraid of Aaron Rodgers. Because what I think is a story that I'd like to see about Aaron Rodgers, and I have not seen it, and I don't think I'm at the point now, given where we are in the season and what's taking place this season, I would love to know if Aaron Rodgers' teammates like him, or if they like him anymore, or if they're getting to. For me, I think his act is getting tired, and that ties in with him not playing well. If he plays well, you can't say anything about him. But if he's not going to play well, and then he's also going to think that, he's a rocket scientist and everyone else is stupid. And I thought it was strange when he went on his media tour, but he did Bill Maher, and he did like 50 Barstool podcasts, and he did Rogan, and he was popping up.
I was in there. I got my 20 minutes. Don't think I'm getting shut out of
But
that.
he popped up in some bizarre places. I know. And, the Packers teammates, the guy who's 22, 23, 24, 25, there was early in the season, they had a loss, and I forgot who the defensive player was. And he said, I'm not worried, but if we lose next week, I'll be worried. And Aaron Rodgers, I believe in manifestation. Yeah. I could see now at the point, if you're going to be 3-6, lose 5 games in a row, where people in the locker room are like, this guy should just shut the fuck up already. I would love a story about that, but I don't know if anyone's going there.
Sure. So I actually did some reporting on this a few years ago about how he relates or doesn't relate to the younger teammates, because this is the problem with every old quarterback. Tom Brady's had this. Aaron Rodgers had this. Peyton Manning had it, where you're 35, and the way the NFL works now, everybody else is 23. There are very few second contract guys in the league anymore because of the way the rookie salary cap works. And so it's an interesting question. I think he's always had – they brought Randall Cobb back. they're buddies. David Bakhtiari is his buddy. Devontae Adams was his buddy. I think that at some point you reach a level of fame, and this is every quarterback, where I think you're not going to be friends with everybody on your offense. And I don't think, I think that who was the Bucs offensive lineman over the summer who basically said he didn't have Tom Brady's cell phone number?
Oh, yeah.
Jokingly texted him.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's a lot of professional relationships without personal relationships. And I really do think that, Colin Cowherd always says a great quarterback is the deodorant. Like, I don't think whether or not his teammates like him is actually all that important. There's a lot of great quarterbacks whose teammates hate them, frankly. Hate them, frankly. And so, that's like, I could name you 4 or 5 QBs where it's like, he had really frosty relationships with the receivers. It didn't end up mattering. Or people rolled their eyes all the time when people would talk about him, whatever. Didn't end up mattering. And I think it's more about how the offense is working, how the meeting rooms work, the chemistry that they have. I think one thing with Rodgers, and this is something I had James Jones on my show a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him this, and I felt a little bit unfulfilled by the answer. One of the problems with Rodgers is that he has an extremely high bar to trust anybody he's throwing to. So to switch out everybody basically but Allen Lazard on the receiving core is a huge deal. And I remember I got killed for this. But I wrote a couple of years ago, I tweeted it. Mike McCarthy told me one time that, and it's 100% true, that Aaron Rodgers had this day, like 2-day period, we were throwing a ton of interceptions. And I said to Mike, I was like, what the hell's going on? It was 2015. I said, what the hell's going on? And he was like, well, he's doing it because he's throwing the ball up to see if a receiver will come down with it because he's testing his limits and he wants to know who we can trust. So he's just clocking this stuff. And he's saying, okay, I'm going to throw this 20 yards up. I'm going to see if this rookie receiver can get it. If it gets picked off, I'm done with this guy. Okay. And that's his threshold. And so the idea you're going to throw Romeo Doubs and Watson, like all these guys, and Sammy Watkins, who's not the most reliable guy as a route runner and has been injured and whatever, like you're going to have to develop chemistry on the fly with those guys and hope that Allen Lazard is enough. And I think especially the rookies are going to be really talented, but there is a threshold that Aaron Rodgers needs to trust them. And I think it takes longer than the time he's been given. And so that to me is a bigger question than whether or not they're going to the movies.
I don't mean it that, I mean, are they, because he is very vocal and critical.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's unfair about it, but I think you can make the argument that he's become, he's tried to turn himself into this guru shaman.
I know what you're saying.
I'll throw this out there. And if you want to get, also him telling Pat McAfee, I don't give a shit what the media says. I don't think there's an NFL player that cares more about what the media says than Aaron Rodgers. That's just my opinion.
I agree with that. I think what we're both getting at is he needs to be a better leader. But I think the flip side of that is I don't know how much incredible Aaron Rodgers leadership would help right now. If they were a little better,
100%.
If they were a little better, I think you'd be seeing, and if he was playing better, I think you'd see his relationship with the 2 rookie receivers. I think that would be huge. But right now, they can't complete a pass. So I don't know. It's almost worthless to even put the effort in.
And this might not be fair, but I think they're sort of connected, Brady and Rodgers. And I think obviously their on-field struggles have been very similar this year. Mm-hmm. And I do think for as miserable as Brady has been because of what's going on off the field, he still, I feel like, will give you something fun. I mean, you mentioned that thing where the lineman didn't know his text. He went on Twitter, Brady, and I think he was like, sorry about that, and showed the text.
Yeah.
The other day, he comes out with the win. He gets in the press conference. That was fucking fun. Yep. Rodgers seems miserable 24/7. I never see any, even on McAfee, he doesn't seem light and fun. He seems like he's battling, I feel like he wants to battle all the media narratives, this, that. Brady, at least, and like I said, Brady's had a rough year, but he's had moments of looseness. You never see that from Aaron Rodgers anymore. He used to, but I don't know if something happened. I don't know, but
I think he's buried under shit. I think he's buried under shit right now, and I think Brady has had that, and I think Brady has wanted to be all ball in the past, and is once he got out of the Patriots, was able to show a different side. I think he knows. You mentioned Rodgers saying he doesn't care about what the media says. He cares a lot.
Yeah.
And I think he knows he's extremely media savvy. I think he knows that if he was lighthearted or fun or started trolling people on social media, he'd get killed for it. And I do think that's in the back of his mind. And I think what's interesting now, I said Bill Simmons on my show a couple weeks ago, and I think athletes now are hyper aware they can end up on the chyron of First Take and First Things First and all of this stuff really easily. And the reason I know that is because I do a training camp tour, and I talked to pretty much every big quarterback there is, and probably talked to 7 of them this year. And one of them, absolute star, just didn't bring it this year. Just did not bring it. And I was really confused by it. I asked somebody with the team, I said, hey, what happened to this guy? He was so great, the last few years, and it seemed like he was really reserved. It's like you just reach this level of fame where you don't want Skip and Shannon to take 3 words you said and said, oh, okay, let's do this now,
I get it. Yeah.
And I think you just get to a point in training camp where you're just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to wake up to this and just like then have to give the follow-up to this interview, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like so many of these guys are so blunt and honest. Like Patrick Mahomes is amazing. Joe Burrow is an amazing talker. Aaron Rodgers has been an amazing talker in his career. Tom Brady, now in Tampa, is getting a little better at opening up. But I would say that I think the wheels are always turning in these guys' heads. Like any Dallas Cowboy giving any interview at any point anywhere in America could end up on the chyron of any ESPN show the next day just by saying like, hey, if Micah Parsons' backup said we're going to win 3 in a row or something like that, or we're going to win Sunday, it would end up like on the B block of an NFL Network show.
Well, the good thing for the Cowboys players is the owner does it all the time. So the players are usually shielded by the owner. Listen, what you say there makes 100%. I've said this a million times on the podcast. The regular listeners who listen every week probably don't want to hear this thing about. I'm going to say it quickly. We don't have to discuss it, but I get what you're saying. And I still to this day can't believe, I still can't believe that websites, media outlets, and it was across the board, actually treated Tom Brady doing The Masked Singer like a real story. Like it was so embarrassing. As someone in the media, I was so embarrassed for everyone who did that. I've said this before. Tom Brady didn't miss any time in his career when his mother had cancer. Yeah. You think he's missing camp to go do The Masked fucking Singer and media outlet? And that story alone was a disgrace and an embarrassment. But then when the origins of it, a random person said on Reddit that they think he did it, and then everyone else took that and ran. If I was Tom Brady, I would never talk to the media again after that. Drove
me nuts. It's the cousin of the Twitter React story that I hate so much. The Mavericks, the Mavericks get eliminated from the playoffs. Here's Twitter reacting.
I do that all the time, though. I have to be fair. I don't want to act like I'm above that. That one I do, but go ahead.
I just think it manufactures narratives that aren't necessarily there, because if you look at 10 people in your feed saying, oh, this is Luka's fault that they're out of the playoffs, like if you maybe scroll 10 people down, you find 10 people who say it's coaching or 10 people who say it's Mark Cuban, whatever. I take issue with that sometimes, less like, sometimes you'll just see like this happened, Twitter's got jokes, which I'm not that.
That's what
yeah.
I'm thinking the last one I did like a couple of weeks ago on Monday Night Football, ESPN did that John Krasinski thing. And the next day my column was, here's how Twitter reacted to that. But yeah, the thing about this player caused I'll stay away from Twitter reaction.
Or just like Twitter murders blank for saying this. And it's like, well, maybe it's just the love people reacting to the feed. Yeah. That to me, just like manufacturing consensus by using people as tweets. That's what offends me. And so this idea, it was always presented as like, this Redditor has an epic theory on Tom Brady, and it's like, you did no fact checking. It was shot down almost immediately. Did you call Fox before this? Because I bet you didn't. Right. Fox is just sitting around waiting for you. And these are legitimate outlets. It's legitimate people who cover. And I always say this all the time when we're talking about the Ringer. We're credentialed for the Super Bowl. We're credentialed in NFL facilities. We're credentialed in these places. We have to carry ourselves like we can't just throw shit up against the wall, because we have to face these people. Right. And so, and luckily, everyone who writes for us also has to do that. We don't have I think part of this, and this is kind of case by case as far as the outlet goes. I think a lot of outlets have people who go out and do the sort of reporting in person or make calls or whatever, and then the aggregators who just sort of take what those people do and summarize it. And those people can be more liberal with the facts, basically, as far as just saying, okay, here's what they really meant to say, whatever. Whereas we can't say this, right? And like, I remember a couple of years ago, I did a piece with Aaron Rodgers, and he had said something in it, and I was like, our social team was like, can we take this and make it a quote card? And I was like, let's not make any quote cards. Like, I don't want to sensationalize it. Like, whatever, let's just do it. So then Bleacher Report immediately makes it a quote card, and it got like 120,000 retweets or something. Like, it was like the Ellen selfie from the Oscars. Like, it was unbelievable. And so people can just take like, we have to, whatever. I don't want to get into the whole reporting thing.
No. Listen, I know exactly where you're coming from. I could not agree.
It frustrates me so much that websites that do not do the bare minimum. You don't have to be credentialed to email Fox or the Bucks and say, is this true? Or Don Yee.
And I'm not even, all I'm asking for is a little common sense every now and then. Like, take a step back and go, okay, a person that nobody knows went on Reddit and said Tom Brady's on The Masked Singer. Maybe we should not really act like this is real. That's all. I forget the report. That's all I'm asking for. Just take a step back and say, what are we doing here? What are we doing? But, you know. All right, let's end it with something positive. Because you had a take recently that I think is one of the best takes I've ever seen. Now, normally, it's always fun when someone has a bad take and you can argue and go back and forth. But I just come in praise because your take about hot chocolate needs to be amplified.
Thank you.
And supported. And as winter comes, it's a take that everyone needs to really understand and get behind.
So I believe, and also, by the way, this is not a shot at water. I'm saying this is a shot at water. It's not a shot at water. But I believe that hot chocolate should be the second most popular drink in the world, with beer being number one. You almost view, by the way, water as almost an essential service. Okay,
it's not like really not a drink. Yeah,
it's not a drink. Okay,
it's
not
a necessity.
In the pecking order. Also, it's not even that popular. Like, if you're someone saying, "What do you want?" If you're getting water, you're not going for teas. Okay. So I just think we haven't done enough with hot chocolate. It's an amazing drink. It tastes great all the time. And people were coming at me and saying, oh, it's not caffeinated, doesn't give me the shakes, I need my rocket fuel. And I'm saying this is a resource problem because if we've given – go ahead.
It's also people being stupid problem because, again, it's this concept where you can't have two thoughts at once. You can enjoy and need your coffee, and you could still understand that hot chocolate needs to be more popular.
And we could innovate it. We could have caffeinated hot chocolate in some way.
That's true.
That can be your first drink in the morning if you need it to be. Think about all of the things Starbucks and boutique coffee shops have done for coffee. Where we're making it iced, or we're adding this, or we're adding pumpkin spice. There's been no innovation on hot chocolate in mass. No.
There has been. You mentioned Starbucks. I'll just say one thing. They have done peppermint hot chocolate, and it's vile.
I saw people mention that, and there were a couple of other takes and twists on that I saw in my mentions because it went vaguely viral. You know, it was more replies actually than quote tweets. People just either saying it was great or saying no. Most of the arguments are about caffeine, but we gotta take hot chocolate to the next level. But if you just give my take in the original tweet was if you just give it 10% of the real estate that coffee has in this country, amazing things would happen.
Agree. When you get hot chocolate, like if you get a hot chocolate out, forget making it home. If you get it out, whipped cream or no whipped cream?
Well, I'm going no.
Me too.
Whipped cream is a distraction.
Great.
I just want to get to the chocolate.
Agree.
And the other thing is, it's already caloric. You got to watch it. If you're gonna drink a lot of hot chocolate over a winter, unless you're running marathons, you got to watch it. So I'm going without whipped cream. That's fine.
And I'm also no marshmallow bullshit either. Marshmallows are like raisins. They just they ruin it. You don't need it. It's fine on its own.
Get out.
Now this is a true story. I read your tweet about the hot chocolate while in a line at the supermarket where there was a package of Swiss Miss in my cart. And I was going to take a picture, and then I'm like, well, let's not make this about me. And then if I was going to say like, oh, I read this while buying hot chocolate, people would tell me I'm a liar and it's not true. But I just wanted you to know I was actually buying hot chocolate when I read your tweet.
Wow, that's very. I don't get any money from that or any pop, but I appreciate being such an influencer. I will say my
I was already in my cart when I read your tweet.
Oh,
so I'm like on your side fully on this.
Mina Kimes has now had hot chocolate every day since the tweet. Yeah. It's in her
I used
head.
to have it a lot at SI because they had free, when we had an office, they had the free hot chocolate thing. All right.
I haven't seen Spotify I haven't looked at the Spotify hot chocolate options. We got cold brew on tap.
They probably have like the Ghirardelli or the fancy. They're not doing Swiss Miss at Spotify, I don't think.
I got to look.
Yeah. All right, Kevin, appreciate it. Enjoy a hot chocolate, and we'll have you on again way sooner than a year from now.
Appreciate you, Jimmy.
All right, take care. Be well. Thanks. All right, joining me now, as he does every week for our Train of Thoughts segment. I should probably change the name of it to like the Train of Licata segment, but he is my buddy from WFAN Radio, SNY TV in New York, Sal Licata. Sal, how we doing?
Oh, not bad. You know, another week in paradise.
Oh, that good, huh? Things are going that well.
Oh God, you don't even know. We're overdue for a steak dinner. Put it that way.
It could be so many things too. The radio show, the TV show, the home life, everything.
All the above. Marriage, right? All the above.
Twitter check marks.
That's one thing I'm actually happy about. Does this mean that I might eventually be able to just quit Twitter? Oh, people are going to start getting off of Twitter?
No one's going to get off Twitter. Everyone says they're going to leave. No one's going to leave. We're all addicted. No one's going to stop. But it is a shit show right now. I find it funny. I mean, I'm not. And I find the people who are outraged funny too. Like the whole thing is just comical.
Can you just catch me up real quick? Because I come into work today. That's why they're like, "Oh, stay off of Twitter. It's a mess." And I'm like, "Well, why? What's happening?" So I like people just using their blue check marks to have fake accounts.
I was surprised at how many. This came up on your station WFAN on the morning show on Tuesday with Boomer and Geo, and they were talking about how this would clean up the bots. And I sent a tweet to Geo saying like, this is the opposite. And I guess people are not. So basically what's happening now is any human being, if they pay $8 a month, can get verified, but not verified. I shouldn't use the word verified. Can get a blue check mark.
Right. Because what are they verifying?
Without having to prove that you're that person. See, when I got verified and when you got verified, I think there was some sort of something that had to be sent, some driver's license. There was something where you had to prove who you were to get the blue check mark. That's out the window. So basically, this is what can happen. If I want to pay $8, I can pay $8 to Twitter and create a Twitter name what is your Twitter name? I don't even, what's like the official Twitter?
Sal_Licata.
Okay, so I can create a Twitter name that says Sal Licata WFAN SNY, and it'll have a blue check mark.
And people will start to think that potentially that's me.
Possibly, yeah.
Right.
So like there were some dopes today who were doing that, but it wasn't really cleverly disguised. Like they made a LeBron James account, but they spelled James Jamez. So if you fall for that, you're the dope. But if someone made a Twitter account that said Sal Licata WFAN SNY and has a blue check mark,
right? People are going to fall for it and think So this would actually go in the wrong way of people trying to actually get verified and
because you can basically you can buy a blue check mark for $8 is what it comes down to, and you don't have to prove who you are. So
stupid.
Yeah. So we'll see how long that lasts.
So, but what it does, then it minimizes every blue check mark, right? Because now you used to see a blue check mark and you'd be like, oh, maybe this is somebody. And now you're going to be like, oh, well, it could be anybody.
I don't know. I guess it all depends on, like, I never looked at it like, oh, this is a blue check mark. This is somebody. For me, it's more about, oh, this is a blue check mark. What this person is posting is real. That's really what it comes down to. Doesn't matter who you are. You just want to be, sometimes you see like
But I'm saying, like, usually if you have a blue check mark, you would be verified as in whatever it is that you do. Yeah. I don't mean like celebrity status. I'm saying like, oh, well, this, whether it's somebody in the media, whoever. Right. Oh, well, there's a blue check mark. Who is this person?
So, like, if someone created the Twitter name, Salicata, WFANSNY, and tweeted in May, the Mets have wrapped up the division, people would go, oh, that's a ridiculous take. Let me see if it's true. And they would see the blue check mark next to the real Salicata and go, oh, this is real. But now anybody could create your name and do that. And no one knows.
Stupid, outlandish things. Who would ever say something like that?
Who would ever? Right, exactly. And the kicker is, so the person paying the $8 can come up with the Twitter name at Salicata, WFANSNY. And then if you don't pay the $8, you're losing your check mark.
Right. So when is that coming into play?
I have no idea. No idea. Yeah. But I mean,
have you decided what you're going to do? You're paying the $8. I know you. You're paying the $8.
I don't know. Maybe I'll see what happens. I don't think this system is going to be in place.
Okay, you think it's going to get blown up?
Yeah, he's already. Listen, it already went from $20 to $8. This morning, you probably missed all this because you were probably sleeping. This morning, they started putting the word official on some verified accounts. Then that went away. Oh, Shelby's telling me I'm grandfathered in. So I guess you're not losing check marks if you already have one. So so you don't have to pay the...
But you can't... So if you didn't have one prior, then you have to pay the $8 a month?
Right.
All right, well, screw them. I'm fine then.
Right, but again, the point is anybody can go pay the $8 and get one.
Right. Whatever. That doesn't matter to me. I can't take what anybody says on there seriously anyway.
I like seeing... Yeah, exactly. I like seeing all the anarchy every day. Just... All right, let's move on to something fun because that topic is terrible. I have to play you this clip from Chris Mad Dog Russo's show on Tuesday on Sirius XM because I don't think anyone will get a bigger kick out of it than you. Shelby, roll the clip.
That is in the AFC, but right now, with the Baltimore, excuse me. I mean, Jimmy Trainer putting this up on his website, on his page. Anyway, right now the Baltimore win makes them the 3 seed because they should win. They got an easy schedule. They beat.
That is, I heard that live and I was in tears. I was in tears.
That is fantastic. Between that, and I haven't heard that until you just played it. Between that and the one with the phones that I did hear that you posted the other day, where Eddie was getting all ticked off and Dog was like, "What's going on?" Oh my God, he is the freaking best.
I didn't know whether to sort of be. I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. I mean, I just played it on my podcast, but it is a little disturbing that the poor bastard's having a coughing fit and he's thinking about me putting it. Maybe I should.
Right. He knows it's going to get played all over the place. Jimmy Train's going to make fun of me for this, choking over myself.
I might need to pump the brakes on posting the clips for a little while. I thought you'd get a kick out of that, so I had to play it for you. We have not read Apple reviews in a while. And sadly, and this hurts my feelings a lot, there have not been many Apple reviews. Now, here's what's really bizarre about this. The numbers for the pod in terms of downloads and listens have been tremendous lately because of great guests. Chris Russo, who we just heard, Dan Le Batard, John Oran, Jim Nance have all been on in the last 4 weeks. And the pod's doing as well as it's done, but no one's leaving reviews. So I don't know if I have to beg, plead, pay people, but we need reviews because it helps the pod, but also I like to read them and it's good material for the pod. So we haven't read reviews in a while. I'll read you the ones that have, there's like 3 or 4 from this month. I'll read them. And then if you're listening to this, leave a review on Apple. All right, here we go. This one comes from BG in LA. I have to identify with Jimmy's overall grumpiness on the pod. And see, I reject that statement. I don't think it's this grump. I just don't think that's a fair representation.
You're rejecting it as being grumpy. This is Grumpy Jimmy.
Okay. I'm also a big fan of the Train of Thoughts column as well as the segment with Sal. The best moments are with James Andrew Miller. I'll always be bothered by the fact that he, meaning me, Jimmy, loves crappy Billy Joel so much but doesn't like Springsteen. That makes no sense. Well, I wouldn't say that makes no sense. I think while there are massive amounts of Springsteen fans out there, there are plenty of people who like Billy Joel more than Bruce Springsteen. So I reject that comment as well.
We're two of them. That might be the one thing that we are in lockstep with. I know we have a lot of things in common, but that in particular, loving Billy Joel and hating, well, I shouldn't say hating, but
I don't like his music. Yeah, right. I don't care for his music. Sorry. Not going to change. All right. This is a review from 300 Steve. Loved the interview with Dan Le Batard. I've never listened to him before, but I found him fascinating, and now I'm going to check him out. You did a great job asking the right questions and letting him roll. I haven't missed an episode of yours since I discovered you a few years back. Now, see, that's bizarre to me that someone listens to my podcast and they've never heard Dan Le Batard, given his massive popularity. So that made me feel good. And we got here British Andy, one of my favorite podcasts, especially with Sal and Jimmy, wrapping things up at the end of each episode like two paisans chatting over an espresso outside an Italian meat market. The guests are always enjoyable too. 6 stars. Now, are we being like, stereotyped for being Italian? Is that allowed?
I was going to say, are we that Italian? I mean, I guess so.
I will say, Sal does not drink espresso or any coffee of any kind, which
never
is mind-boggling to me.
We need to do. You know what I envision when I hear that? Like you and I sitting out front of Satrielli's.
That's what I think he was implying. It was very stereotypical anti-Italian stuff there. I'm not sure if.
Hey, look, I'm fine with it. I mean, I am. Italian,
I'm fine with it too. I just don't want this guy getting in trouble. Someone's going to be offended. I'm not offended.
Me neither.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, a good Italian meat market. But no, I'm not drinking an espresso. Regular coffee. All right, last one here. CAJ Gymnast. CAJ Gymnast. Love the show. I listen as I cut my lawn. Too much wrestling and a little New York centric. Then again, you can't expect to order a steak at Red Lobster. Now, listen. That's calling the podcast Red Lobster. Which, well, no, actually, he's saying you can't order a steak at Red Lobster. I guess that's not that bad of an analogy. I'm trying to figure out.
I initially took that. That was offensive. So he's good. That's about. You want to make fun of us being Italian, whatever. I thought that was offensive.
Then again, you can't expect to order a steak at Red Lobster. Now, I think I've been to Red Lobster once in my life, and I think I was a kid, and my parents took me. I was like 6 or 7. So I don't know.
Red Lobster, now I haven't been in years, but man, the biscuits that they have, oh my God, second to none. Matter of fact, I want to go back to Red Lobster. We used to go there. That was like in our family, like Father's Day dinner when I was a kid. My grandparents were around. Yeah. Red Lobster was like the big event for us on Long Island. You were really going out to dinner with Red Lobster back in the day. And those biscuits are great.
So then that's not an insult, what the guy said.
Well, we're talking about a steakhouse. I mean, I've since learned, we're talking about 6-year-old Sal where Red Lobster meant the world. Now you're talking about 43-year-old Sal where I know a good steak and I enjoy going to steakhouse. You and I aren't going to Red Lobster.
No, but he's saying you can't order a steak at Red Lobster. So he's saying, we're Red Lobster. He doesn't want the New York-centric stuff in the wrestling. So, speaking of wrestling, let's wrap up. Well, we got to do best bets. But I'll just say that we'll do this in 1 minute because then we got to wrap. Today, we're taping this on Wednesday, November 9th. 25th anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob. I cannot believe it's been 25 years. That freaked me out. Did you watch that live, and were you into wrestling when that happened? You were not into wrestling.
I was out. I obviously know all about it, but right. I did not watch it live, and I was not into wrestling at the time. I was out around 92.
The reason I had to bring this up to Sal is, everyone out there who's listening, when you have like your good friends who you're tight with, your inner circle, your core group, you have there's things between you, whether it's certain things you like, certain phrases, memories. And one of the things with Sal and I is I sent him one time, I said, this is probably the greatest video on YouTube. And it's like a 10-minute video of Jim Cornette breaking down the Montreal Screwjob. And I wasn't kidding. I think it's the greatest video that's on YouTube. If you've never seen it, just go to YouTube, put in Jim Cornette Montreal Screwjob, and Sal and I will reference that video to this day now. And periodically, I'll rewatch it like a few times a year, and I'll send Sal just a line or two from it. And
It's fantastic. I'd rather watch that than watch that first and then maybe go back and watch the actual match. But he nails it.
That's the thing. If you are listening to this and you have any affiliation in any way, shape, or form to wrestling, and you have not seen that video, you have to it's not even you have to watch it. That's how good it is. Am I overselling it?
No. Jim Cornette may be one of the funniest guys out there, and he's not even trying to be funny. He's just being factual and just tearing everybody involved apart. It is but the way he breaks down the Montreal Screwjob, in addition to being funny and having all these crazy lines. Oh my God, it's fantastic. As a matter of fact, I want to watch it now again.
There you go. Yeah. All right, let's wrap this up with best bets. I got back on the winning cycle last week, and I did it in beautiful fashion. Had Washington plus 3.5. They lost by 3. The hook and the cover for me. So I am now 7-2 on the season after the 2 losses. Who did you have last week?
I had the Colts, which was a horrible pick, and I was all for them by Sunday. And then, because we do this on Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever, I was stuck with that. I hate their guts, the Colts. I hope they lose every game by 100 the rest of the way. But they will. I had them. Yeah, exactly. I had them, and I think I'm now 1 game under 500. Where are we at? 4-5?
You're 4-5. You're 4-5.
I want the Bears this week. I believe they're at home against the Lions, right?
Minus 3. Yep.
Yeah, I believe in Justin Fields. I didn't love anything else at the quick glance. Again, these things are weird for me on a Wednesday doing it. I get
stop with the excuses.
No, it's true. It's how I do it. But right now, like last week, the easy pick was the friggin' Bengals. Bounce back, typical Thursday Night Football. Everybody ripping them to shreds. The Panthers stink. Anyway, I want Justin Fields and the Bears minus 3. I believe in Fields. I think they get a big win, and they cover that spread against the Lions.
So I had 2 games I really loved this week, and one of them was the Bears, but I was not going to go with them, so we don't match. But I do love the Bears this week. I think that's a great pick.
Checker on checker. Why not?
I'm not going with them. I'm going to do this because this is something I would never, ever do in my life, and I want to break out of my shell and try different things in life. I'm going to utter a sentence here that should have me committed. I'm going Geno Smith over Tom Brady.
Wow.
That line is wrong. The Bucs are minus 2. The Seahawks should be favored. The Bucs offense is completely inept. They have no running game whatsoever. He's got no help at the receiver position. And the Seahawks, I've watched the Seahawks the last couple of weeks because they weren't a team I was on early in the season, and then I'm like, I got to see what's going on here. The Seahawks are good.
Yeah.
The Seahawks are very good, and with Kenneth Walker there as a weapon in the backfield, good receivers with Metcalf and Lockett, and obviously Geno Smith playing well, but their defense is playing well. Sunday night I always do the lines for the next week, and I had Seattle minus 3. They've got Tampa minus 2, so I will gladly take 2 points. They're going to win outright. That's a line for Tom Brady respect, and I get it, and I understand it. He's the GOAT. Great job last week with a comeback, but they couldn't score against the Rams. I love the Seahawks this week. I can't, and I never bet against Brady, but I'm going with Seattle.
Yeah, I would not pick that game myself, but you're right. Seattle, I still don't believe in them, but they've proven themselves through the first 9 weeks here to at least be a legitimate team all around. Now, and who knows with the Bucs.
And that's a game you won't get to see any of because that's a 9:30 Sunday morning special from Munich, Germany.
I actually might. Now, where's this game being aired? Because last time I couldn't see it was on ESPN Plus. Where's this?
It's on the NFL Network.
All right, good. So I could watch that.
There you go.
Maybe not start to finish, but all right.
All right. Good job. We'll see you next week. Be well.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Take it easy. All right. My thanks to Kevin Clark and Sal Licata. If you missed any recent episodes of the SI Media Podcast, go into the archives, check them out, and subscribe to the podcast. Jim Nance was on the pod last week. John Oran from Sports Business Journal 2 weeks ago. Chris Mad Dog Russo 3 weeks ago. Dan Lebitard 4 weeks ago. If you didn't hear any of those interviews, check them out. Subscribe to the pod and leave a review on Apple. We'll read it as we did this week on an upcoming Train of Thoughts segment. All right, that wraps it up. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it as always. We'll see you next week right here on the SI Media Podcast. Stay safe and take care.